quick about spiritualism. Who can tell me what spiritualism is? Right here. Talking to the dead people. Yeah, there we go. Well, some people say ghosts or afterlife. That's a part of it, but specifically the belief in spiritualism is that you can communicate with the dead like you're talking over a telephone. Give her a book for that answer. That was very good. And the whole thing was started by three girls, really two of them, these two right here, Kate and Margaret Fox, in Hydesville, New York, back in 1848. In 1848, they claimed that they could contact dead people and ask them questions. And the dead people would answer with table rappings. They would either ask a question and knock once for yes, twice for no, right? They went on tour. For 40 years, they were an international sensation. They caused a huge uprising of mediums all over the world, claimed they could talk to dead people. In 1888, though, they finally came clean. They said, yeah, for the last 40 years, we've kind of been scamming you. They figured out that they were able to create knocking-like sounds by flexing their knees, and their knees would create a popping sound. That way, in the dark, they could hold hands, and then nobody could tell that they were flexing, that the ethereal tapping was actually coming not from the table itself, but about 6 inches underneath it where their knees were. So they actually came out and busted themselves. Sadly, nobody cared, and 2 years later, they died of alcoholism, which, I mean, it's not funny, but... Furthermore, a lot of other people have been busted as well. The Davenport brothers were huge. They started the Modern Escape Act, and their whole thing was, well, we're tied up, so it couldn't possibly be us playing these instruments inside this sealed cabinet when nobody's looking. And one day somebody smeared printer's ink on the back of the violin, and sure enough, the lights went on, and they're still in their trance. So look, we're tied up. It wasn't us, except there's a big fat black smear across his chest. So that's how they got busted. You guys seen those spirit photographs? People claim to take pictures. Here, look, there's your dead grandmother. I took a picture of her. The guy who started that was William H. Mumler. He had a huge practice, was making lots of money until people started to recognize the ghosts as being currently living residents of Boston. So that's how he got busted. But the King Daddy, if you ever talk to someone who's really into this stuff, they'll say, oh, sure, these guys were all frauds. But what about D.D. Hume, Daniel Dunglas Hume? He was never publicly exposed. Well, a lot of people don't realize the reason he was never publicly exposed is because he never performed in public. That's an easy way to do it. And in fact, he only performed for people who already believed him, and he gave strict controls over how and when he would perform. He was not a nice guy. He actually found a rich widow in England, said, hey, let's contact your dead husband. Oh, your dead husband's telling me to tell you that he wants you to adopt me as your heir and give me all your money. And she did. So this is a bad dude. And so he had a lot of tricks. He'd do this trick where he'd put an accordion into a cage, and then it would play 2 songs. The ghosts only knew 2 songs. They either played The Last Rose of Summer or Home Sweet Home. Nobody knew how he did it. Then when he died, they found a whole bunch of tiny mouth organs, little harmonicas, and they put 2 and 2 together and realized that with that huge handlebar mustache and the fact that he performed in the pitch black dark, he could easily be playing, and the fact that those 2 songs only have 9 notes and can be played on a mouth organ, suddenly they had a much more plausible explanation for how he made the spirits do their tricks. He was the guy who started the whole floating thing, and you guys would be amazed. The whole floating thing, the idea that at a seance the ghost would make him float, he started. And now imagine, you're going to laugh, but imagine you invite this man into your house. You're scared out of your mind. It's pitch black. He's talking to weird voices and scaring you. And then all of a sudden you hear his voice rise up above you. You feel your hands tug as he rises over you, and he says, I'm floating, I'm floating. You're freaking out, right? And all he was doing was going, I'm floating, I'm floating, I'm floating. Oh, I'm coming back down, I'm coming back down. But the great thing was this idea was hugely popular. So in the 20s, or in the 1900s, when photography became more available, especially flash photography, everyone had photos of them floating. This guy, some of them are obvious fakes. Like this guy, you can actually see the line where he drew out the table he's standing on. And other guys, they would do stuff like in the pitch black dark, with early flash photography, they could say, I'm floating, take the picture now! And if you were lucky, you got a really creepy photo like this, and if you were unlucky, you got a goober jumping up and down right here. Another thing this guy, D.D. Hume, started, he started the whole table tipping thing. You guys see the movie The Others? Remember at the end where they're doing the seance and the table's going nuts? That's table tipping. And the idea is it's the exact same principle behind when you use a planchette. Who can tell me what we use the planchette with nowadays? Ouija board, yeah. And it's also the same principle when using a pendulum. It's also the same principle to dowsing. Who can tell me what dowsing is? Right here. There you go. Yeah, finding water with a forked stick. As soon as they're done, we'll get you a book for that. Yeah, and it's all of this is the same principle. We're actually going to do an experiment here. We're going to contact an ancient, mysterious spirit. And to do that, I have these very rare, very expensive, magical hex nuts from Atlantis. and they're tied to unicorn thread. Okay, so if you don't, I don't think we have enough for everyone, so we're going to do every other person, so everyone gets a chance. Here's what we're going to do. Everyone hold out your pendulum in front of you. Make sure the magical hex nut is even with your heart for your magical hokum energy. And hold it perfectly still. Now imagine, number one, that you're scared out of your mind, and second of all, imagine we're going to contact an ancient, mysterious spirit from Atlantis who goes by the name of Bob. All right, we're going to contact Bob, and the way he's going to answer, imagine you just ask him a very important question, and he's going to answer yes. Here's how he's going to answer yes. He's going to answer yes by causing that pendulum to move forward and backwards right in front of you in a rocking line. In fact, all of you visualize, hold it still, but visualize him saying yes. Visualize it moving forward and backwards, and the most amazing thing's going to happen. Even though you're not moving it, it's going to move of its own accord, moving forward and backwards, moved by the power of Bob. All you have to do is, some of you it'll happen right away, some of you it takes a little time, but all of you it's going to start moving backwards and forwards. How many of you guys it's working? Hands in the air. Good, excellent. Now imagine Bob changes his mind. Now he's going to change his mind. Now he's going to say no. He's going to say no by moving it into a circle. So I want you to visualize it. Picture it moving into a circle. And even though you're holding it still, he's going to cause it to move in a circle. Pretty cool, huh? By the way, if your friend didn't get a chance, hand it off to your friend. Let them get a chance to try it out. So how many of you guys, hands in the air, if you really believe we just contacted Bob from Atlantis? I'm a little worried about you guys. This is a concept. They call this Chevreul's pendulum. And it's named for Michel Eugene Chevreul, French scientist, brilliant guy. He actually, back in the 1800s, dowsing was getting hugely popular. Now remember, dowsing is using a forked stick or maybe a pendulum. There's a bazillion different ways to dowse, and all of them involve carefully balancing some kind of object in your hand and watching how it freaks out, right? And so Chevreul says, well, I'm going to try this dowsing thing. Let me try it. He takes out a pendulum, he holds it up, puts a bowl of mercury underneath it. The thing goes nuts, starts swinging all around. And he says, wow. So he takes the bowl away, and then all of a sudden it stays perfectly still. He says, holy crap, there might be something to this. I don't know that those were his exact words, but... and so he says, well, I tell you what, though. Being a scientist, he knew that it was possible for him to affect the results. So he set up what's called a double-blind experiment. Who can tell me what a double-blind experiment is? Right here. There we go. Both the experimenter and the subject don't know what the expected outcome is. Yeah, that's an important part. So he set up a partition so he couldn't see. He held out the pendulum. He had an assistant behind the partition either set an empty bowl down or set down a bowl of mercury. He didn't know which was which. And once he didn't know, he got no response whatsoever. So he figured out quite correctly that what the human mind visualizes in detail, the body can't help but make small micromuscular movements that are in accordance with that. And those small micromuscular movements get amplified over the pendulum or the balanced object and cause it to move in ways in accordance with what you expect. This is called the Ideomotor Response. Now, I'm sorry to say, those were extremely expensive magical hex nuts from Atlantis, so I'm going to have to ask for those back. If you'll pass them all down to this side, I know. If you want to try this at home with your friends, just take your necklace, take a ring, stick it on your necklace. It'll work just as well. Any questions about Chevreul's pendulum or the Ideomotor Response? By the way, on dowsing, there have been lots of people who... How many of you guys know somebody who swears by dowsing? Or know somebody who, where it's like, well, what about this? He took the fork and it found the water. How do you explain that, Mr. Brian? And the answer is, well, there's a lot of different answers. First of all, it could be that everywhere in the field there was water, right? Or it might be that it may be that you have a good intuitive guess as to where water might be. And because after all the dowsing does is show you what you expect to see.